Good day. Our research group consists of three group members. The research that we have conducted prior to this presentation is entitled The Use of Instructional Listening Activities to Enhance Listening Skill Among Form 4 Students. Let's take a look at the problem background and problem statement of this research. We're trying to address the issue when it comes to planning listening activities for the students, as it can be agreed that to find the right listening materials that are suitable to be used for the whole class is challenging. Although there are numbers of listening exercises that conform to exam format, there are limited variety of engaging listening activities that can check students' comprehension of the listening content itself. Therefore, we decided to figure out whether using instructional language approach in listening activities would be engaging and positively affect the students' listening performance. This research is guided by two research questions. The first research question is: are there any improvements in students' listening skill when instructional language activities are incorporated? The second research question is: are there any differences between the control and experimental group pre-test and post-test performance? Among the four skills in English language learning, listening skill is essential to acquire if learner wants to achieve communicative competence with the others. As Darty and Asmawati in 2017 noted, listening actually provides second language learners with language input, which in turn plays a very crucial role in students' language development. According to Jaborova in 2020, humans use 45% of the time, while students use 70% of the time to actually listen. Listening activities in Malaysian classroom has its own issues and challenges. It can derive from two major aspects. The first is the student's high anxiety level, and the second is the classroom setting or classroom management itself. Anxiety in listening may even affect students' speaking confidence. A study by Hamid and Idrus in 2021 found that the anxiety score in the listening section of the test correlates positively to the score in speaking anxiety section. Anxiety in listening may be attributed to a number of reasons. One of it could be the speed of speech that made it hard for the second language learner to catch on. Another challenge that usually occurs that stem from classroom issue is the time management. Many teachers found themselves having not enough time to run the lesson plan for the listening activities. What is instructional listening? Instructional language itself is a concept in the study of metacognition in second language listening, which it has its theoretical underpinning in the works of Flavel in 1976 and Brown in 1977. Metacognitive listening instruction engages the learners in conscious thinking about their own cognitive process during the activities. According to Emmerich in 2019, it provides an array of strategies that the learner can select from, apply in various listening situations, and evaluate. There are numbers of studies recorded on using instructional approach in honing students' listening skill. Studies conducted by Maftoon in 2020, Slaman and Sidhu in 2020, and Robilos and Bustos in 2022 resulted in positive effect when using instructional language during listening activities. Valensky et al. In 2022 found that teachers are faced with challenges when conducting instructional listening activities itself. One of the challenges is the unfamiliarity of the materials used.
The design of this research is using a quasi experimental approach as the samples are not randomized. Pre test and post test on students' listening assessments were used to examine the improvements of students. Observations were taken in the form of comparing the assessment marks for both before and after the implementation of using instructional activities to enhance listening skills among the students. There are two types of instruments used in this research. First, a pretest that included four sets of Part 2 listening assessments in the format of SPM paper with 8 multiple choice answer questions in each set. Second, a post-test, which is identical to the pretest. The pre and post test sessions were conducted during the first and sixth week of the research timeline. This research included 34 students who were divided into a control and an experimental group. The control group is from class 4 Rashid with 16 students, and the experimental group is from class 4 Al Arif with 18 students. They are Form 4 students aged 16 years old with A2 to B1 proficiency levels according to the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages CEFR from SMK Agama Miri, Sarawak. These students have not done any listening assessments in the format of SPM before the implementation of the research. The data collection method took 5 weeks of school with 1 to 2 sessions per week. 4 different intervention activities were conducted, which are origami making, listen and draw, Randall's ESL Cyber Listening Lab, and Chinese Whispers. The methods of the intervention activities were mostly related to the total physical response (TPR) approach to enrich their listening skills. The activity for the first and second listening interventions was making origami sculptures. This activity involves students listening to the instructions and sculpting their origami based on the instructions given. There were 2 sessions for this activity, as the first session was led by the teacher and the second session was led by students to the students. This was done to promote communicative interaction among the students. The next listening intervention was listen and draw activity. Students first listened to the verbal descriptions of the images or pictures given by the teacher, and then they would draw what they had listened to. This activity focused on the lexical coverage of vocabulary development and the fluency practice within a structured communicative framework. It was also communicative because there was an information gap and the drawer could not reproduce the drawing unless the speaker's message had been successfully sent and received. The materials for this activity were taken from the book Listen and Draw, a teacher's resource book by Stephen Mark Silvers. Next is from Randall's ESL Cyber Listening Lab through esl-lab.com. Students listened to various audios from various topics from this website and completed the task given related to the audio. The reason why this method was used as one of the interventions was to expose them with native speakers' pronunciation and tone, as well as the lexical coverage in different contexts. Students would have to answer objective questions as well as subjective and higher order thinking skills questions related to the audio. The last intervention was the Chinese Whispers activity. This activity was a fun and interactive activity that allowed students to move around and interact with their peers. Students would whisper the sentences and phrases to each other until the last person in line say out the sentences out loud and comparing it with original sentences.
Moving on to the findings of the study, the data was analyzed by using SPSS. For research question 1, are there any improvements in students' listening skills when instructional language listening activities are incorporated? Based on the pre-test and post-test scores for experimental group, it can be seen that there was a clear improvement in the scores of the post-test in students' listening skills after instructional listening activities are incorporated, which means that this strategy helped them develop their language skills and also improve the students' listening comprehension skills. Next, for research question 2, are there any differences between the control and experimental group pre-test and post-test performance? For pre-test, There is no significant difference between the experimental and control group before the intervention, and meanwhile, for post test, there is a statistically significant difference between the experimental and control group after the intervention. These results suggest that the intervention with instructional listening activities had a positive impact on students' listening skills, namely listening comprehension.
The use of instructional activities had a positive impact in enhancing listening skills among Form 4 students. The result indicated that there were improvements in the experimental group after instructional language activities were implemented. From the result, it is learned that these listening activities can be used to help upper secondary school students in improving their performance in the listening tasks or assessments. Furthermore, this type of listening activity has helped students to stay focused and alert on the instructional cues that led them to the answers for the task. There are also some significant differences in the behavior of the students as the students in the experimental group are more excited and motivated to complete the listening assessments compared to the control group during the post test.